to have it here.
I'd like to call together the Finance Committee for the March 30th regular committee meeting right here at 11:30. Clerk, do we have a quorum?
You do.
A quorum is present. First order of business is to approve the minutes of prior committee meetings. Supervisor Bruno, second by Supervisor Gerasi. Discussion? And all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Approval to the floor and public comment. Anyone from the public or any other supervisors not on the committee desiring to speak? Hearing none, seeing none. We will then move on to the action agenda with a request for transfer of funds as attached for the committee approval. Motion to bring it to the floor. Supervisor Bruno, Supervisor Gerasi on the second on there. And a question, Tammy, some of these are from 12/31. They still carry through on journal reports.
These are the transfer of funds. Yeah, those are so, yeah, these are county road projects and they carry forward from here.
Okay, and there's, yeah, a few others from that date, but that's okay. Okay. Any discussion on the transfer of funds as attached? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Number 2, request items to be discussed by the county administrator. County administrator?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The only thing we have this month is the general report of transfers, item 2. And as I look through it, again, that's the puts and takes with the budget. I didn't see anything that's stood out that would need further discussion unless members of the committee do.
No comment from committees? Okay. On to number 3, request of items to be discussed by the county treasurer, Mike Swan. County treasurer, you have the floor.
Good morning. This is a request to transfer $14,407 from contingency to our hospitalization fund. We have an existing employee who was covered under their wife's insurance. She is retired. This was all done within the last few months, so we don't have enough money to cover him getting on the county health insurance in our budget.
Motion bring to the floor for discussion. Supervisor Thomas in a second. Supervisor Bruno, thank you. Discussion. Treasurer, nowhere else in your budget you can pull this from?
No,
You don't know loose change in your pocket?
well, I can't comment on that.
Yeah. What's board's pleasure? Bring it to the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Yep. Number 4, referrals from Criminal Justice and Public Safety Committee and assigned counsel. And this is to request to amend the county budget in the amount of $39,169 to reallocate unspent grant funds from the 2022 to the fiscal year 2023. Motion to bring it to the floor. Supervisor Gerasi, second by Supervisor Bruno. Discussion. Again, this looks like it's just a carry forward. Is that correct?
It is. I'll just clarify. This is unspent money from the grant. It's not necessarily from 2022, but it's unspent the grant and the grant's been extended through 2023. So
Okay.
we're able to increase the budget.
Thank you for that clarification. Any other discussion? Call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 4A passes. 4B, Office of Emergency Services, request for a transfer of funds in the amount of $20,488 from a source of funding to be determined to the Office of Emergency Services budget to cover the cost of salary for the office specialist part-time. Motion to bring it to the floor. Supervisor Gerasi, is there a second? Supervisor Bruno, discussion. There is no source for this. Are we to decide?
So it's either going to be contingent or appropriation from.
Okay,
balance.
yeah. What's the committee's This is a brand new position. I think we do have a item on the end here. Because it came out of personnel. Correct? It was passed out of personnel?
It was passed out first.
Yes.
Yep.
There's a few that are looking for funding.
Yeah,
So,
when you look at 10,
10A.
yeah. So. And that's the request to amend the table of organization and salary schedule to create the new position of, okay, so. So funding determined by the office of, to cover the budget of salary. What's the finance committee's thoughts on this?
I support the need. If we look to, that's the treasurer for direction and guidance.
Okay, and we also have budget officer on board here. Almost like a BOOB. Contingent
Why not?
on this? Well, I'll tell you why. Because we're in the beginning of the year and we're already dipping heavily into our contingent and our fund balance on things. And it just goes along. We do create these budgets and put a lot of thought into them, and these things come along. So we're on philosophy and financial jurisprudence. So.
And I'll say what I said at personnel, seems how there's only 4 of us here, which is just a quorum. I could kill this here, but I won't. I'll vote yes. But I am definitely opposed to doing this. But the board seems to be determined to spend the money, so let's spend it.
And your objection, if I may ask?
My objection was, I didn't agree with it, last October or last September, August. I thought we made considerable adjustments within that department, and the budget increased by close to $55,000. And I just didn't, I thought it was a step too far.
Supervisor Bruno?
What, maybe I missed it. What was the rationale for this position? Does anybody know?
Yes, we do. Supervisor Drossy, this is coming out of your committee.
Yeah, I mean, Emery gave a list of duties and tasks, or additional duties or new duty, and with nobody to do the work. You know, the responsibilities and tasks in that office is really growing,
Due to,
more demands.
well, I mean, there's got to be
In many
some,
areas.
Hmm?
Many more demands and the need for their office. So let me see if I can, you know, Emery sent something.
Yeah, County Administrator?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Assistant County Administrator just reminded me that the contingency fund starts out at 275,000 a year. We're currently at 258,202. So we have spent some out of the contingency fund. Also at the personnel meeting, I believe we talked about additional money coming out of the contingency fund, which would have been significant. The general fund and the treasurer's here, but I believe we spent about 4.7 million out of the general fund balance last year. We've spent 477,000 so far out of the general fund balance. So at this point in the year.
Out of that 477, just for clarification, is some of that the I'll call it the reallocation of funds that.
Reallocation.
Do you know reallocation?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So there's some net out of that, but still, for 2 months, we're doing pretty good, huh? On spending money. Vice Bruno or Supervisor Drossy?
Yeah, there are some items in Emery mentioned. Grant administration is one of them. Working with high hazard, you know, we have the hazard mitigation plan
Mhm.
that all our communities are now responsible for. You know, they need to pull that together, although we have a vendor. That office needs to pull it together and manage it moving forward. The Adirondack Regional Hazmat Consortium, there's trainings that office needs to put on. You need to have a point of contact for that. Special needs registry, we have the new applications for emergency notifications. I mean, the list goes on and on. So I've had discussion with Emery. I clearly believe and feel that this position, again, is part-time, is needed. Somebody's got to do the work.
I think the question is that much of the work has been done through the years, by the office as with the three staff persons that were in there. Plus there's the EMS and fire coordinators that also work on it. So I think that's where the question comes up of what's changed so much. on that. Any chance of any grant funding for this
For this
position?
position, no, I mean, not at this
Or,
time.
or to
I know-
help with the office to offset?
Yeah, I know Emery is constantly on the lookout for funding opportunities. And I don't believe that at this point, there's one available for this.
County Administrator?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The other thing I'd mention is, we are facing significant challenges with EMS countywide. And we're going to have to, Chairman Garrity mentioned at the personnel meeting, we're going to have to take some action to assist with EMS across the county. And we're also facing challenges in the fire departments as well, with volunteers, getting significant volunteers to do that work and getting training necessary. Thank you.
Supervisor Drossy, as chairman, you recommend?
I do recommend, I think it's important, we have department heads in place and they justify and articulate what their needs are. We have to either support it or deny it, but they're in the trenches with this. They know what they need to operate. I understand it's coming mid-year, so to speak, but it's a need that exists in that office. So we can decide to support the director's need, or we can say, find another way to do it.
Budget Officer Thomas, you say that this came before the budget committee last,
Yes.
and wasn't funded through there.
I didn't, at that time, I didn't agree. Questioning maybe the need for the person, but, sometimes you gotta weigh these things. But again, I won't prevent it from going to full board. I think most board wants to do it.
Okay, further
Agree
dis-
with Supervisor Thomas, but, all department heads, they're all very good, but, some of these things, there's only so much money, as you well know, taxpayer money, taxpayer dollars. So as the budget officer said, pretty much, you need to draw the line somewhere. It's unfortunate, but that's the way it is. There are things in my personal life I'd like, but I don't have so much money. And so I, like Supervisor Thomas, I won't stand in the way of this going to the full board, but boy,
but if I may interrupt,
go ahead.
thank you. You know that when things pass out of committee, I, for one, I'll speak for myself, will tend to support what comes out of committee, unless there was something definitely that I didn't agree with philosophically, ethically, and based on that. So, as it comes out of this committee, it's pretty much a green light.
True. I likewise, you look at a lot of things and say, well, a committee spent time, dedicated to vetting this thing, if you will, or analyzing it, et cetera. And if it comes out of a committee, I say, well, I would defer to them. They spent more time than maybe I would in the board meeting. So it, as you say, Supervisor or Chairman Leggett, it probably gets passed. So.
And we do have this did come out of committee. This came out of the Criminal Justice Committee, and they did consider it. So just all the little ins and outs. Overthinking.
Thank you.
And if I may, again, I had my say during a budget. It's a large budget, so it's easy to just go right over top of this. Nobody notices, but when it gets focused on at this level, then it's but like I said, I had my say, but I won't prevent the board from doing what they want to do.
Further discussion? Call the question. All those in favor? Oh, sorry.
You have to settle on your source of funding, whether this is coming from surplus or you can fund balance or continue.
if we start. So for starting it out, we had these two choices. Once it's made, it's going to be in the regular budget, from year to year. So it's how we kickstart this thing. We imagine that this will be a position that will be here year after year. So what's a committee's pleasure?
On balance is fine.
Actually, I would favor, I guess, contingent at this time. We're given a certain pool of money to be able to make up for things that weren't considered in the budget one way or another. Expenses that can come up, as we'll see here on the further down on the agenda, some expenses, mechanical equipment, et cetera. So we throw it in there.
But when it's gone, it's gone.
When it's gone, it's gone. So, or we refund it with fund balance. So,
So when it's gone, it's not gone. All right,
Well, it's a $25,000 annual salary.
mhm,
So proportionally between April 24th and the end of the year. I mean, I haven't figured that out, but it's less than
mhm.
what the annuals.
Okay to bring it out contingent? Would we be good with that? Okay. Mark. So. Do we have the motion?
You have a motion, you just have to vote.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
right.
Aye. Opposed? None. Motion carries. On to 4C from the sheriff office. Request to amend the budget in the amount of $38,261 to reflect the receipt of 2 insurance recovery payments. Well, yes, moved by Supervisor Drossy, second by Supervisor Bruno. Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 4D, request to amend the budget of 2023 in the amount of $8,000 to carry over grant funding from 2023. Motion bring it to floor. Supervisor Drossy, second Supervisor Thomas. Discussion. Call question. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. E, request for a transfer of funds in the amount of $45,535 from contingent account to the sheriff's budget to cover the cost of unanticipated expenditures. Motion bring it to the floor. Supervisor Thomas, Supervisor Drossy. As we see, these are for repair and maintenance of buildings and corrections, other equipment. Details on
It's down at the bottom. They had a uninterruptible power system
yep.
and a wash.
and the industrial washer, and that washer was about 20 years old. Did we hear 20 years old? Yeah, okay. Do we have the motion on the floor?
Yes.
Okay, any further discussion on that? Call the question. All those in favor of 4E, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. On to number 5, referrals from the Economic Growth and Development Committee. This is from Planning and Community Development. A request to amend the county budget in the amount of $3,386 to reflect the receipt of occupancy tax, administrative funds for the 2023 per resolution number 735 of 2022. Move to bring to the floor. Supervisor Thomas, Supervisor Bruno on second. Discussion. Call the question. All those in favor of 5A, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. 5B, request to reappropriate funds in the amount of $20,000 from unappropriated surplus to the planning contract code to return funding appropriated but not expended in 2022. Motion bring it to the floor. Supervisor Bruno, Supervisor Gerasi. Discussion? No discussion. Call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 6, referrals from Health Services Committee. Request to amend county budget in the amount of $360,052 to allow for the pass-through of 100% state aid from New York Office of Addiction Services for supports of Addiction Care Center of Albany Rehabilitation Service in Warren County. Motion to bring it to the floor. Supervisor Thomas, Supervisor Bruno, discussion. Hearing none, call the question for 6A. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 6B, request to appropriate $300,000 from general fund unappropriated surplus to the psychiatric expense criminal code to cover the cost of court-ordered New York State CPL 730 competency examination and restoration expenses. Motion to bring it to the floor. So Supervisor Bruno, Supervisor Thomas, on the second. Discussion.
Yeah, thank you. This particular item, we discussed at length in the committee, and it's something that just keeps growing. I don't know if everybody's familiar with how this operates, but there are people that are sent they're determined to be incompetent to represent themselves, I guess. So my point is this thing is, it just keeps growing and growing, and we set aside, our budget officer and everyone else set aside small amount of money. I say small in comparison to what the potential for this whole thing to be. So, and this is mandated.
That's right. And it's not predictable either.
Right.
Yeah.
For years, we budgeted $25,000.
Yeah.
Had no issues. Last year, it was the same. But we moved it up to 50,000 and with the hope that we'll be okay.
That got us through a month.
Maybe.
Chairman,
Right.
if I can just quickly address not the funding piece, but just the constitutional piece. It's a constitutional requirement under federal and state statute. And it's not to represent yourself, but it's competency to understand the nature of the charges against you. And the process is obviously an expensive process when there's a competency issue that an individual raises or somebody else in the judicial system becomes concerned with regarding a particular defendant. But it's both federal and state constitutional requirements that are in that statute by New York law. So
If I may, so that
Yes.
the individual in question are sent to a facility that is like $1,000 a day, or is my understanding. So it's quite expensive, and they're held there and treated until they're deemed to be competent, as you say, not represent themselves, but understand the proceedings, if you will.
yep, they go under observation, testing, and yeah, I don't know the full extent of what's involved in the full complete. It's not a 1 hour, 2 hour sit down. It's a much more comprehensive process. I had without revealing any names, I had a matter in federal court where the individual was sent to California for months just to do that initial evaluation of whether he can proceed to trial. So it's definitely, we don't send him to California.
No, but I'm saying if that happened, we would.
I'll call the question if there's no further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. 6B carries. 6C is from Public Health, request to amend the budget of 2023 in the amount of $110,565 to reflect receipt of grant funding from AHI for public health infrastructure workforce data systems. Let's see. Let's do without objections.
Could I ask just one clarifying question? And it says it's for 5 years and each year is 110, 565.
Okay.
So would there be an interest on the committee to making or amending the resolution to cover this year and each successive year in that amount? So we don't have to come back each year. I don't know if we can. I
No.
defer.
So it's a budget amendment. If you do it that way, it's likely to be lost. I would say you need to do this every year, but I would leave that to Mike to decide. But I think you need to do it every year. In the year, we can't amend the budget when we're outside of that year. So it's gotta be every year. If you try to do the one and say we can do it in future years, it may get
Yeah,
lost.
right.
So I would say we should do it every year.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Good question.
Okay. And D, let's take a look at that. That's a request to amend the budget in the amount of $3,000 to reflect receipt of grant funding from AHI to support field goods funding. And that E is request to amend the budget in the amount of $525 for receipt of additional funding from the Immunization Action Plan grant. Can we bring all three together? Okay, so moved by Supervisor Bruno, second by Supervisor Gerasi. Discussion on 6C, D and E. No discussion, call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Right.
Opposed? Motion carries. And, yeah, and is this still 6? Like I'm not sure it's 7.
No, it's not.
Okay.
But so the request is.
Okay.
Oh, that's personnel. That's a different. We'll get to that one.
We'll get to that one. Okay. Okay, number 7 is referrals from legislative rules and government ops. And this is for the Board of Elections, and it's a request for a transfer of funds in the amount of 89,000. No,
89,846.
there it is. For $89,846.69. This is updated from our agenda. From a source of funding to be determined by the Board of Elections. From finance to cover the cost of 2 bipartisan election management technician positions created in 2023 county budget that were not funded at that time. And as it says, this request is contingent upon approval of the Personnel Committee to increase the salary from 0 to, and threw in a number there. So was there the approval of the personnel for those? Or do
Personnel
we
gave
need that?
their approval, yes.
Okay,
So the Personnel Committee just approved of increasing the salary from 0 to the total amount for each position, which I don't have right here in front of me, 45,086.43. So that's what personnel approved. And then when you look down to 10.6, that's what finance is giving their approval on to. This item is just speaking to the funding. So the $89,846.69 is the prorated amount for the remainder of this year for both positions, including fringe. So this item just
Okay.
deals with the finance part of funding, and you do need to determine a source of funding for that 89,000 if this committee's in favor.
all right. Is that clear to the committee? Okay. Motion to bring it to the floor to discuss. Supervisor Drossy in a second. No second? I'll second to bring it to the floor. Discussion. There was,
Yeah, we talked about this in committee meeting. I don't know how we expect the office to get the work done. I mean, it sounds like similar story I'm saying about emergency services, but there's got to be some recognition here about the volume of work that office does. And there can't be any mistakes at the end of the day on those ballots. And I think this is a protection for the county, but I think you need to spend some time in that office to see what they do and how they do it.
there was several discussions. One was is this out of unit and a particular grade that was decided on at personnel?
It is an out of unit position, but it's the grade 7 on the out of unit scale. Right?
But now that seems to be more than what was requested originally. Is that correct?
That's because they had used the salary from 2022 without the increase, because it's about another increase. That amount
The
is
5720 increase.
Okay. Okay. Good. Is that clear? Okay. Board of Elections, you want to speak to the motion on the floor?
We can answer, excuse me, we can answer questions if they try to answer some questions, if they have any questions.
I have a question. I
Sure.
want to step up there. So. One is you call this bipartisan, but actually it's, you cover everybody under it, like independents and whatnot, don't you?
Absolutely. Pretty much, yep. And we're there to help any of the voters or any of the candidates, whoever comes in the door, that's our job by state law to make sure they're taken care of.
Yep. Good. We're going to have some cost savings, did you say?
We're, yes, as we said in personnel, there's no way, because we're not a revenue raising department. We're an unfunded mandate, as many people like to claim, which we are, governed by New York State, not so much by the county. But we offered for these positions, and I'm not really sure how the county administrator made out, or how Amanda made out when it came out of personnel, whether it went to a grade 7. It did go to a grade 7, okay. So at a grade 7, we have 2 voting machines for specialists that we wouldn't need any longer. That's basically about 4,500 extra, 2 extra help positions that last year were about $1,000. The use of the extra help that we used last year and the years past would be less than what it had to be used the coming year, with the new bodies in place, to the tune of about $7,400. And then there was 2 positions taken in 2001 that it was kind of got missed in the scuffle of paper. They were supposed to be positions that we were giving up if we got the 2 bodies to replace them with, which we didn't get the bodies, but they took the money. So that was $10,000 they took from us. Overall, that's about $22,800 that would be cost savings as well. These new positions, something we didn't mention in personnel, and we talked about it when we were over there. These are salaried positions. As you saw, I don't know if everyone, and I hope everyone got this, the job description. If you didn't, I've got a couple extras here, but this position is going to be a salaried position. So it's going to be a non-overtime paid position. They are going to work overtime. Election day starts at 5 o'clock in the morning and ends at 1 o'clock the next morning. We're all there. They don't get paid overtime. They don't get paid compensation for that. That's part of their salary, and they know it when they take the job. When the state of New York came to us last year and said to the Board of Elections, you're going to open up an additional early voting location. I don't know how many of you remember or not. Beth and I fought that and said to them, there's no need for that. But we didn't win that battle with the legislators. They said we had to have an early voting location in our largest city municipality, which meant we needed one in the city of Glens Falls. And we have the one here in Warren County and HSB. That was an additional 72 hours, 9 days for the general, 9 days for the primary, that have to be manned and have to be set up, and all this stuff has to be put together.
And in 22, we had 2 primaries.
And the ballots now, and the absentee ballots, they aren't where you just get them in the mail and shove them in a box in the back of the room now. That's the way it used to be. You just mark that you got them in, you put them. Now they have to be checked daily. It has to be updated daily that those absentees have been received by us. They have to be put on the computer so somebody can go in to check to see if their absentee has been brought in and been received by us. This is just more stuff than New York State keeps dumping into the lap of an office of 4 people. If you look at the additional people, you look at the additional counties around the state of New York, we are one of the lowest manned departments, Board of Elections in the state of New York. Smaller counties with populations of 37,000 people have got a minimum of 6 people working. We have 4. As I said in personnel, there is a law right now, or not a law, I apologize, in the budget for this year. There's $15 million for local boards of elections for increase in salaries and the hiring of new employees. There is also $15 million where the Senate modified the executive recommendation, which provides for no capital appropriations for the state board of elections. That $15 million must be sent to the local boards of elections for voting equipment, software, and technology upgrades. I wish I had a crystal ball to be able to tell you that all that money is going to stay in that budget and it's not going to get washed out. I doubt all of it could get washed out. May a piece of it get washed out. Very, very good possibility. We don't know. We don't have that crystal ball. But we cannot continue on with 4 people in the Board of Elections and continue having 120 laws yearly handed down to us, changing and expediting the process in the boards of elections, and continue to do it properly in the way that we've done it with 4 people. It's just not possible. So consider it preventive maintenance, because if it's not preventive maintenance, at some point, we're all going to pay one way or the other, because something's going to slip through the fine tooth comb.
Thank you. And just for clarification, you say it's an office of 4, but you do have 9 positions within your budget, plus
They're
the
part-timers.
technicians.
And then on election day, we use those technicians, and we use them all on election day. We have 21 poll sites, so we need those people out on the, the road for issues. They're needed. They're needed as well.
We actually have over 200, if you want to look at it that way. When you bring in the inspectors that we're required to train by New York State every year, with a minimum of 300 or 3 hours per training session and passing a test, that's 200. Luckily, as it stands right now, they're vendors, and we can only hope that they stay as vendors.
So say you could count paper ballots with 200.
If you want to bring it up and bring them, if the state would allow us to, you're probably right.
I don't
The
know if
state
you would
tells
have your
us-
results by Thanksgiving, no.
I don't think you'd have your results right away. It might be January, but
I disagree. Get 300.
Any further questions or discussion for the commissioners? Okay, thank you. We need to find money for this. Where's it going to come from? Dan, you want to go on past practice like of 10 minutes ago? And dip into contingency on that? And
What's that gonna leave us? Anybody know?
It'll leave you with about 100,000 in contingency.
The end of March.
so, just hope nothing breaks. Any way to adjust the budget for the savings you're going to have? That you just, looks like it's about 14,000 dollars.
for the money, you're talking about the positions we said we could give back, or
That's correct.
we can't make that promise because it's gonna be some time before we can fill those seats. This isn't a position that we can just walk in and set them behind a laptop or behind a desktop and say, go to work. These are positions that have got to be trained, and when we find the right person to do it, it's not anybody that we can pull off the street. They've got to have a lot of computer experience. They've got to have election knowledge. So when we get them in there, we've got some idea of what's going on.
And
I could-
our EMS folks that are doing the ballot now, right now, we don't have time to learn that. So they're only folks that know that system. So they would have to be on board for a short time to train either our deputies or the new positions to make that ballot definition.
Okay.
And that's our intent. Our intent is to take our deputies and move them into the EMS room. It's not emergency medical services. It's the election management system. Move them into the EMS room to do the ballots themselves, because as it stands right now, our part-time ballot builders have full-time jobs. They come in and work part-time for us. By the time they get there at 3 o'clock, we're leaving at 4 o'clock. We have to wait until the next morning to see if the ballots are done or completed. And if they're not, we have to call them back in to fix the issue with them. But our intent is to replace them with our full-time deputies so that they can get in there and do the work while we're all right there, to have the new people picking up on some of the work that our current ones do.
That's a time restraint too. The state board usually certifies 5 days before, 5 business days before we have to have our military ballots out. So that's it's a time crunch. And we need to be all on board and in the office when those procedures are happening.
What's the actual cost for the year? I mean, when you look at these numbers, they're annual amounts, but we're already into April and before they hire people. So what,
These aren't prorated.
Right, so they have presented these prorated. These do include the FICA Medicare, retirement, any health insurance
Including everything.
allocation in this?
FCIC, Social Security, medical, retirement, that has to just be handed in, including all the fringe benefits, inclusive.
Okay,
The hourly salary, if I'm not mistaken, is only like $22 an hour, $22.75 an hour.
Oh.
But with the fringe benefits and everything else added on top, that's where the money comes into play.
okay. So, and this is for the 1,200 hours, what's on the back of
For 7.
7 months.
It's the prorated.
Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those, source of funding contingent.
Contingent, okay. That would be $89,000 in the contingent fund.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Referrals from the Occupancy Tax Coordination Committee.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Request to appropriate funds in the amount of 15,000 from budget code 881, reserve octax to budget code for the tourism business promotion to cover county's share of salary for the Lake George event manager position. Motion to bring it to the floor. Supervisor Bruno, Supervisor Thomas. This is the new position that we are sharing. Any further discussion on this one? Hearing none. Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 9, referrals from Public Works. A, request to establish various road projects for 2023 in accordance with the budget transfers included under agenda item 1. Motion bring it to the floor. Yeah, Supervisor Thomas and a second, Supervisor Bruno. Any discussion on these projects? Hearing none. Let me see. Superintendent of DPW, you want to speak to any of these or are you good?
I'm good. Everyone else is good.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 9B, request to amend the budget in the amount of $687,598 to reflect the receipt of CHIPS, Pave New York, EWR, and POP funding from New York State. Motion to bring it to the floor. Supervisor Bruno, Supervisor Drossy on the second. Discussion. And I was just going to say, looking at all that 687, that's for the whole county. I know what the town of Chester gets. And it's about half that much. And that's just one town. Why?
That's not the extent of it. We get 1.9 in shifts. We get 500,000 in paved New York, 375,000 in that new POP program, and then 375,000 in EWR. Extreme winter recovery. These are from last year's money that we just didn't amend the budget from last year.
Right.
So we amended the budget for 2023 and put that money into those projects that were done last year.
Okay. So.
On the previous resolution, does that spend all the money that was borrowed? Or
The money that was there, still, what you don't see on here is there's still 3 projects from last year that are being carried into this year, which is Diamond Point Road, Main Street in North Creek.
Right.
Because we were waiting on the water line, which they have out to bid now and a contractor on board. And then Coolidge Hill Road. So that will expend that bond money as well. This is the money this money in that first, when we're establishing road projects, is the $4 million that we budgeted for this year.
Call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, on number 10, Finance Committee action is required on the following personnel agenda items. Contingent that they were approved. And personnel agenda items 4 and 6. Number 4 was referral from criminal justice, and this is for the Office of Emergency Services. And it's the request to amend the table of organization and salary schedule to create and fill the new position of office specialist part-time, 24 hours a week, grade 7, based on annual salary 25 to 80, 40, effective April 24th, 2023. And just be sure, is this the correct?
For the Office of Emergency Services, yeah.
Okay. So. Motion bring it to the floor. Supervisor Drossy, is there a second? Yeah, Supervisor Bruno. Further discussion? Hearing none, call the question for 10-4. Say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. 10-6, referral from legislative rules. And this is Board of Elections, request to amend table of organization and salary schedule to increase the salary of the 2 bipartisan election management technician positions from 0,000 to 45,086 43. So correct your agenda and resolution there. Motion to bring it to the, what?
I'm sorry, yes, the 45,086.43 is the prorated for, the actual is 48.
I'm sorry. The salary for those positions is 48,091. That's this base salary for each position.
Okay, 48,091. So that's what we would be amending the table of organization salary schedule to for each one of those positions. Motion bring it to the floor. Did we? Already? Okay. Supervisor Drossy in a second. Supervisor Thomas. Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Pending items, joint meeting with the Personnel Administration and Higher Education Finance Committees to be scheduled, changing the funding formula for SUNY Adirondack. The date has been set for April 24th, time to be determined.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, it's been set right now for April 24th, but there's appear to be some conflicts. So Amanda, the county clerk's going to get with the county clerk at Washington County and come up with a reasonable date.
Okay. And as let's see, was everybody here to hear the discussion under personnel and higher education about the SUNY formula update? Okay. County Administrator, you want to update our committee members that were not present at the earlier meeting?
I unfortunately do not have a copy of the the spreadsheet. Yeah, Tammy.
Oh, to hand out.
Some down there to hand out.
It would be in the personnel.
Personnel agenda during the recycling.
There we go.
So we met, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We met in a joint, we've had 2 joint meetings with Washington County concerning funding for SUNY Adirondack. And there have been, if you recall, there have been several proposals since it started in 2020. The college asked us to increase our funding to from where it's currently about at 3,446,281, I believe. And they asked us to increase that to 5 million over a 5-year period. We did not act on that last year. And they've also asked that we take our share from, thanks, 14 or from 11.46% between us and Washington County to about 15%. So then we've had another discussion, and community college regulation recommends that the local sponsor share be 33% of the college budget. So there are three components of the college budget, the community college budget. There's the sponsor share, the local sponsor share, which consists of what Warren County puts in, what Washington County puts in, and what we charge other counties in what's known as chargeback for their students who attend SUNY Adirondack. And that makes up roughly 24% of the budget currently. And they'd like to take that, and we'd like to take that to 33%. I think that's the agreement that we reached with Washington County. Recommendation is we should fulfill our obligation to make that be 1/3. And so the sheets that you have that came from the Personnel Committee, there are basically two approaches to this. One is we would increase our percentage by 2% a year. And that would get us to the 33%, very close to the 15% number that we talked about, and also the 5 million number we talked about between us and Washington County by 28-29. And
that's the 2% on top of the 2%.
That's 2% on there, 2% on top of the existing 2%. We plan 2%, a 2% increase of college funding every year in our budget. So we basically we and Washington County have been increasing our sponsor contribution. That's part again of the local sponsor share. Our sponsor contribution has increased by 2%. We'd add an additional 2% on top of that. And you see the numbers. There are just three different looks of the same thing. The top one is what it is in percentage increase each year. The second one is what the actual dollar amount is each year we would contribute. But the dollar amounts are continue to grow. So the last of the third, the way it's broken down, shows the cumulative dollar amount that we would contribute. Under 2%, we would contribute an additional $913,000 by 28-29. Washington County would contribute $676,000 of their share. Their share, our share is based on full-time equivalents. And we've had numbers of discussions in the past that maybe we should use equalized full value. The recommendation by the state of New York is that you use equalized full value for capital projects for the community college, but full-time equivalents for sponsor share computation, and Washington County's agreed to that. So right now, it's roughly 27% of the students at SUNY Adirondack are from Warren County, about 20% are from Washington County. That changes each year, but not significantly. So we're basing the approach on, we'll continue to do 27%. Washington County will continue to do 20%. The other option that you see is a 3% option, 3% growth. It just gets us there a little bit faster. And then in 28-29, it goes back to the normal 2%. And our contribution there by 28-29 is $1.099 million. Washington County's is $814,553. And the chargeback is a factor of the student enrollment and also the sponsor contribution. So the chargeback amounts will continue to increase. And Mike Swan was here at the Personnel Committee. He made the comment that our chargebacks have increased. We were paying about $250,000 a year to other colleges for our students from Warren County who attend other community colleges. That's gone up to about 571,000 this year for not that significant an increase in the amount of students, but the other colleges are increasing their chargeback. So for example, Herkimer County increased their chargeback by 167% this past year. And SUNY has only been increasing their chargeback by about 48%. So increased sponsor contributions will drive chargeback cost up, and they'll continue to get additional funds from based on other students from other counties who attend our community college.
And if I may add, some of those chargebacks go into their capital, correct?
Some of those chargebacks go into their capital, yes. Their capital projects. So where we stand on this is on the and we were trying to schedule it for the 24th. I think it'll be another date, but there'll be a joint meeting of our personnel, admin and higher education committee, and the finance committee with Washington County's finance committee and their higher education committee. We'll probably have it at SUNY, so and have all the personnel there who can answer any questions about this. But again, the whole focus, and Washington County's been a good partner with us on this, increasing their equalized share at the same level we're doing. And I mean, that's what the recommendation is. So basically, we have the joint meeting. We take it back to the committees, and probably if it goes forward as a resolution, both Washington and Warren County would present it at the May board meeting for a vote. Need to say that this only works if we both do it. So it's not something that Washington County can vote and we can vote no. It's kind of a joint venture that in order to make it work effectively, it has to be approved by both boards. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, County Administrator.
Thank you.
There's no further discussion on that pending item. Privilege of the floor for public comment. Anyone from the public? Hearing none, shipping on. Let's have a motion to adjourn. So Supervisor Drossy, Supervisor Bruno, all